Welcome to Build Your Maverick Business, the podcast for underdog, outlier, and renegade entrepreneurs. If you dream of going off on your own and launching your rebel empire, but don't know where to start, you're in the right place. We'll teach you how to use mindset, branding, and practical advice to build a killer business and transform your world. And now, here's your host, Alex Pitt.
Hello pals, welcome back. Hope you've had a wonderful week since I spoke to you last. I have had an insanely busy one. So packed at the moment. I have really had a week. That is not a complaint, by the way. I'm very grateful for it. Word seems to have gotten out that I'm back doing some design work, and I'm very fortunate that I've had so many old clients, old contacts, and even friends get in contact with me for design work, which means I've been averaging about 14-hour days this week. And I'm exhausted. I am shattered. But it's no bad thing at all. Like I say, I'm very grateful for it all. Just shattered. It's a pyjama day for me. Apart from doing this, apart from talking to you all, I am in my pyjamas right now. I'm wearing a Young Ones t-shirt. I look cool as fuck. But yeah, all work, no play does make for a bit of a cranky Alex. So one night this week, I made a point of blocking out an evening just to go and sit in the pub with two of my favourite humans in the whole world. Them being my fiance Joe and my best mate Tino. It was lovely. We sat in our local, we had a couple of pints, we had a chat, and just didn't think about work for about half an hour anyway. Because it's hard not to always come back to work when you're seeing your friends and you spend so much time doing it, right? And I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast before, but when Joe and I first met, he was working a very corporate 9-to-5 job. Joe, obviously this is a podcast and he's never been on it, so you wouldn't know what he looks like, but he is a bearded, tattooed, Viking-looking punk rock fan. And it was always a bit odd for me that he worked in the corporate world. Didn't really fit. He's great at his job. He was really good at what he did, but that always felt out of place to me. And in the end, I corrupted the poor boy. He saw me sat working on my business every day. And after a while, he thought, fuck it, I'm going to go and do what I love. And he did, and I'm very proud of him. He took the plunge. He's now a freelancer himself, and he has many talents. Sound engineering, video editing. He's in a touring band. He does all sorts. Very talented man is Joe. So on this night in the pub, Joe, Tino and I were all talking about work-related things. Joe was telling us about a couple of clients he was working with at the time and how he was handling it all. Because one particular client was giving him a bit of grief. And we were groaning along and thinking, God, that sounds like a fucking nightmare. As you do. But after he'd finished telling us all about it, he turned to Tino and said, honestly, I wouldn't have known how to push back and put all these boundaries in place and deal with this nightmare of a client, deal with this guy, if Alex hadn't have told me about a very similar shit show that she'd had with a client of her own a few years back. And I thought, that's nice. Oh, I'm glad I helped, talking about some of my nightmare scenarios. But he didn't stop there. It turns out that in so many scenarios, Joe being the avid listener that he is, he'd picked up on all the times where I had had a fucking nightmare of a situation with a client, or with admin, with hiring, with pricing, all of these things that go into running a business. I told him about the times when things were really, really shit. And he'd listened to all that bad stuff. And when he started his own freelance business a little way down the road, he did it with a bit more savvy, a bit more caution, and I imagine with a bit more comfort, knowing that I'd had all of these obstacles to tackle and I'd still come out the other side. I'd survived. Now this was really, really nice for me to hear. If you're anything like me, I mean, if you're just human, you go through these tough times, whether it be like this week where I've had so much to do, so many plates spinning, I felt like I was going to shatter into a million pieces if I took one misstep. All those times when work has dried up so much that you stay up at night wondering how the fuck you're going to make ends meet. Or when one client gives you so much grief over a project that your life becomes an anxiety-fueled hell. It sounds dramatic, but these are things that we all experience from time to time. There are times when we feel so broken down and pushed to our limits that we just wonder when the fuck the character development is going to end so things can just be easy. It does remind me of this meme that kind of lives rent-free in my head, where someone is asking God, why do you give your hardest battles to your strongest soldiers? And God is replying, like, it's literally an email. What the fuck? I joke because I realise there are much worse things happening in the world than some of the admin that goes into running a business, but it does feel like a struggle sometimes. And it all just made me think about how often, in this little entrepreneurial world of ours, success stories steal the spotlight. We get bombarded with these inspirational folk telling us tales of their overnight successes and how they're making incredible skyrocketing profits and how they live these very glamorous lifestyles. But behind every story like that is all of these setbacks, all of these failures, and all of this shit stuff. Lessons learnt the hard way. And I really think that talking about the hard times, the shit stuff, and the really unglamorous stuff is not only cathartic, but it's really, really important for supporting and inspiring each other. And I have very many reasons for thinking of this. I say very many. I've got 4. Check me out doing actual prep before the podcast. So here's why I think we need to talk about the shit stuff more often. First up, it breaks the illusion of perfection. Now, this is something that comes up on social media a lot, right? It's that real kind of repetitive, exhausting snapshot of everything being wonderful all of the fucking time. People showing up only with their successes that kind of perpetuates this bullshit that entrepreneurship is a smooth ride to the top. That if you just wake up at 5 o'clock every morning and organise yourself a little bit, that you will be a millionaire within 6 months. But it's not real, you know? In reality, it's a fucking roller coaster. There's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. It's unpredictable, and a lot of the time you have no idea what the hell is happening. So by sharing all of the bad stuff, sharing the failures, you break down this veil of perfection, this facade, and remind everyone else that setbacks are inevitable. They're just part of the journey. They are par for the course. So number 2, talking about this stuff reframes failure as a crucial component for success. And I think a lot of people think that failure is the opposite of success, but it's not. Failure is just something that you have to do a lot of fucking times before you get to where you want to be. And you can't get there without learning from every time it goes wrong. Normalising that, normalising the idea that setbacks aren't permanent roadblocks, they're just little stepping stones. They're stepping stones to achievement, to hitting your goals. Normalising that can only be a wonderful thing. Try changing my mind. When we all see that even the most successful people have faced failure, shoved 2 fingers up at it and carried on, we're all going to be less intimidated by those risks that we need to take, by going after what we really want. Which brings me to my next point. Talking about the bad stuff builds this cult of support. I've talked so much about how community and networking is essential when you're working for yourself, because running your own thing can be so lonely, especially if you're faced with failure in any sense. So opening up about all of this stuff, talking about the struggles, you're building this little community where everyone can guide each other, empathise with each other, and slap ourselves on the back and say, I know mate, I've been there. That doesn't happen on the same level if you're talking about just the good stuff that's happened. We want camaraderie, solidarity, remind each other that we're not alone. We're all having a terrible fucking time a lot of the time, but it's gonna be okay because we've got each other. And finally, we're gonna inspire more resilience because the shit stuff isn't going away. Unfortunately, I would love to tell you that I have a technique, some sort of framework or course or workbook that's going to stop everything from being shit every now and then. I have no such thing. Such thing does not exist. And to be honest, I'm not upset that it doesn't exist because you don't appreciate all of the incredible stuff until you've been through the bad stuff. You don't appreciate that day in your pajamas unless you've had a week of chaos. You don't appreciate your inbox filling up with clients unless it's all been a bit quiet for a while. You don't appreciate that amazing client who gives you incredible briefs and pays your invoices on time until you've dealt with a few twats. But when you're in it, it's tough, which is why it's good for us to be transparent, tell these stories and let them serve as a beacon of hope and motivation for everyone else. All right, there you go, pals. I've made my case. Let's prioritise being honest about how hard things can get. Vulnerability over bravado, please. Share the shit stuff as often as possible. All right, my darlings, you're doing great. Proud of you all. Have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you here next time. If you love what you're hearing in this podcast, but you are still yet to start that rebel empire of your own, I've got something that might help. Head over to the show notes of this episode where you will find a free 7-step action plan to kickstarting your first side hustle. It's got pretty pictures, it's got activities. What more could you want, my loves? Get it downloaded, try it out, let me know how you get on.